Dynasty the King.
Welcome to a very special edition of the Dynasty Exchange. Michael Smith presents the Dynasty Exchange. This episode is hosted by yours truly, Michael Smith. And the reason it's a special edition of Michael Smith presents the Dynasty Exchange is Michael Smith's team in the Yacht Club is all of a sudden looking quite special. 180 points, ladies and gentlemen. 180 points, led the league in scoring this week. First time that's ever happened. So your boy don't know how to act, so I figured I'd come on this here podcast and flex since I don't need an invitation, since my name is on it. But before we talk more about me and my team and the run I'm about to go on, because I seem to recall Walsh preseason. Oh, there's no way you make a playoffs first year. No way you make a playoffs. Said Josh, I'm gonna make playoffs. I'm gonna make playoffs, Josh. Just watch me. I don't know what we bet, but whatever we bet, you owe it. You absolutely told me I was, and I'm 4-5 right now.
No.
I'm away from the playoffs, but I'm gonna get there, and you're gonna have to eat crow.
I said, and I quote, if you're doing your job right, you shouldn't make playoffs. I will stand corrected on that because it looks like after we get into the trades, you're going to have your cake and eat it too. Listen, you can put it on the credit card, man. You can go make playoffs your first season, burn all your picks, burn all your future, and
That's
put
not
together
what I did.
That's not what you did at all. And that's why
both.
it's special. Yeah.
Spider-Man can always do both, okay? Okay.
I love it.
But before we get to me, I want to talk about you guys. As two Cowboys fans, Josh and Dylan. Dylan, I want to start with you on this one because I'm fascinated by this dynamic. As you guys may know, as somebody who's been in sports media for over 2 decades now, I came up old school. I came up back in the day when it was not cool to be a fan. Like people in journalism and in sports media or media in general, we had to be objective. We had to be unbiased. We had to be neutral. We cannot be fans. And somewhere along the line, maybe it was Bill Simmons. I don't know. But somewhere along the line, it became acceptable to openly root for a team and to pledge your allegiance to franchises. I never did that. I root for people and I root for stories, which saves me a lot of stress because I can root for my fantasy teams strictly for selfish purposes, but I don't have to be conflicted about reality. So I wonder, two Cowboys fans, Dylan, you first, what was it like having all the emotions collide? You trade me Dak Prescott last week, who's been on a tear, and he continued that tear against the Eagles. We'll get to that trade in a second and the ramifications of that trade. You trade me Dak Prescott. He goes off QB2 for the week, but he does it in a losing effort to the Eagles, and the Cowboys lose in very Cowboys fashion. So what were your emotions watching your Cowboys, but Dak Prescott in particular, again, given the deal that just went down between me and you?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, this may sound terrible, but I almost expect it. Like, I really genuinely expect it. I expect when Dak Prescott has one of his best games, CeeDee Lamb goes for almost 200 yards, Cowboys are playing great ball, to just lose it at the end by Dak falling on his head. And, it's just everything. What's Shoemaker falling short in the, like, it's just at this point, Cowboys fans, we just, after being a Cowboys fan for 20 plus years now, it's just, I expect it. But it did sting even more so to watch Dak go out there and just deal the ball like no other. I sold him what I thought was at a high last week to you, coming off of his game last week, balled out.
Seller's remorse?
Not quite, and we'll get into why. I don't have seller's remorse because of the direction that I chose, and this was a long process of us talking through this Dak Prescott trade and what it meant for me to actually commit to a direction instead of this bailout or cop out of productive struggle, right? And so it was like a double-edged sword, right? It's like, oh, I got rid of Dak, he's balling out. Oh, also the Cowboys lose. So it was an emotional trade, an emotional week, an emotional weekend for me. But Josh shares the same sentiment, I'm sure. But I mean, getting rid of Dak Prescott was tough. I think he's still a top 10 quarterback. And like I said, part of the reason why in our negotiations, why I didn't want to get rid of him, because I think Dak Prescott is still a piece you can build around in a rebuild. However, if he's one of the most valuable pieces on your team, you might have to do that, which is what I did, and I had to get rid of him. So it was a bummer, and just a bummer of a weekend, Sunday as a whole. Not to mention I lost to one of the most annoying teams in our league. That's a different story.
Your nemesis now, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Man, watching the game for me, you nailed it, Dylan. We've come to expect it. And I think the challenge about being a Cowboys fan, or even just a fantasy manager of the Cowboys, is it's almost like I know I can't have nice things, because the Cowboys situationally should have won the game. But all I know is that Mike McCarthy is going to find a way to mismanage the clock and then call really weird plays at a really poor time. And while Dak played well statistically, at the end of the game, I got to say, I was so ready to defend Dak. I'm like, okay, he proved the doubters wrong. He is so good that he'll never be great. And that's what I mean. Is like, he's just so in the tier of he's good. He had a wide open Jake Ferguson, who's on my team, who I love watching develop. On that 4th and 8, he easily could have converted. He was being covered by a linebacker. It's going viral right now. You can find it online, that last play. It's like they just can't get out of their own way. And as a sports fan, you're hoping that your sports team lifts you up out of your normal life, where how many of us are at work and we're like, dang it, I did that thing again, or I forgot, I didn't do the dishes the way my wife wanted. The Cowboys just bring me right back. And so for a seat, I just want them to lose the rest of the season, which they won't do, so Mike McCarthy can get fired. And much like my team, I can kick the can down the line and be like, we'll rebuild, and there will be hope for the future.
We do this every year, Josh. It was with Jason Garrett. It's not coaching. We all know what the big issue is in Dallas, all right, as Cowboys fans.
Jerry Jones being the GM, not the owner. I'm a big fan of Jerry as the owner, but, that's neither here nor there. If you're a fantasy owner, you need to be encouraged, because I think the one big takeaway is over the last 2 games, since CeeDee Lamb really became a squeaky wheel after that loss to the 49ers, Dak has been like, you are getting targeted. I don't care what the play call is. So that if you're a CeeDee Lamb opener, you're happy. And now, Mike, I want to ask you, now that you're the Dak Prescott owner, and you guys have teased this trade, I've got to know, how good does it feel to have Dak from a fantasy perspective? How confident do you feel with this newfound playoff push you're on?
Dak on this role that he's on is great to have, again, especially since I'm not invested in reality the way you are. All I care about is the damn near 380 yards and 3 touchdowns and no picks. I don't care how he got there. I don't care what the final score was. All I know is he was QB2. And he was QB2 to CJ Stroud, who I also have. Okay, that's my first flex. That's my second flex of the show, okay? So between CJ Stroud and Dak Prescott, your boy is sitting pretty. Okay, so here's the trade, but I want to preface the trade, which has got to be, we got to be in triple digits at this point, me and you, Dylan. I don't know how we constantly get deals done. But both of you guys are great trade partners for me, as is Davis, who's not here, but I've gotten a lot of good deals done with Davis. But you two guys in particular, and I think this is something that dynasty managers, fantasy managers everywhere, but especially dynasty managers, I think they can take something from this and really understand what makes this format of fantasy so great and how to be successful, if I may say so, at 4-5. Haven't done anything yet, but I'm feeling good. But I think this is how you're successful at dynasty. Just like in real life, we're all married men. We all got friends. Relationships take work. And I need to start the story of this Dak trade by talking about the relationship that I have with Dylan. I have a great relationship with Walsh as well. Walsh, big Mike Smith guy, as you're known in the Yacht Club.
Big Mike Smith guy.
Big Mike
I
Smith
get so
guy.
much crap for that. Dylan does twice the amount of deals, and it's like, oh, look at Walsh. I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Because you brought me in the league. That's why.
That's fair. That's fair.
But me and Dylan on another level. Like our below deck is go get a room. Like me and Dylan just have this thing, this bromance when it comes to trades. So we actually have a routine at this point, me and Dylan. We haven't even talked about it. It's just happened. So I touched base with Dylan on Tuesday just to see how he's feeling after the results are in for Monday night. I know that Wednesday is date night, so I don't bother Dylan. Yep. Every Thursday, wherever I am for Thursday Night Football, Josh, I reach out to Dylan to say, yo, what's up, man? What you thinking? I just check in with him.
I'm seeing the pattern now. I'm like beginning to think through all these.
Wherever y'all just say, what's up, man? What you thinking? And we just talk. And we just talk about whatever offers he's getting, whatever he's considering. and we have this open dialogue that comes from a place of trust. Like, we know neither of us is out to bullshit the other one. We're not out to hustle the other one. We're honest with each other. We've done so many deals, but there's also a lot of deals that never got done. That we say, you know what? No, I'm not interested in that. Hey, I want a hold right now. It's all good. So Thursday, at this point, I'm out of it. I've accumulated capital, lots of it. I'm more or less out of the real push, and so, but I still want to be competitive. So I go to Dylan. I say, "Hey, what you thinking?" He's like, "I'm unloading running backs right now," which I did a couple of weeks ago. So Dylan trades me Zach Moss for 2 2025 third-round picks. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I got another running back I can start. I might be able to win this week, kind of just stay in the hunt for that 7th spot. 14-team Superflex League, 7 teams make the playoffs. Then I get an offer because there was, and you guys talked about this in the last episode, there was a lot of sinister stuff going on with people just trying to like get an edge any way possible. One team offered me a 2nd-round pick that belongs to the biggest tanking team for 24 in the league. So it is guaranteed to be the 201 in this year's draft for Gardner Minshew, who's been my QB2 since Anthony Richardson went down. So I had Stroud and Gardner Minshew. I had to take it. I had to play the long game. I had to take the trade. So I take that trade, and now I'm kind of in no man's land because I don't have a second quarterback in a Superflex league. So I got all these picks, and now I'm like, well, do I still want to try to compete? I don't know. All right, let me see if I can speed this up a little bit. So the next day, Friday, I called Dylan back. This is where we get to the Dak trade. And this is where the relationship comes in. I called Dylan back, and I said, Dylan, what's your price on Derek Carr? Another thing about our relationship is we're not afraid of bidding against ourselves. See, when you can't trust somebody, you're like, well, I don't want to put something out there. No, it's like we're fair with each other. We're straightforward. We're fair with each other. What's your price on Derek Carr? He's like, I probably got him at about a 1st. What you thinking? I was like, well, I was thinking about offering you 2 2025 seconds for Derek Carr. Dylan says, that's not bad, but I still think a starting quarterback in a 2-quarterback league who's been playing pretty well lately, who's got job security, is worth at least a 1st-round pick. I respect it. Now, Dylan, I'm going to pass to you after I say this part. You take it from there. Dylan said, I'm going to think about it because I haven't really gotten many calls on Carr. I've been getting more calls on Dak, to which I responded, again, we got this Andy Reid, Bill Belichick thing going. We just always get deals done. Mm-hmm. I said, we always find a way. I said to Dylan, I was like, well, what have you been getting offered for Dak? Dylan, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you hit on a lot there. I think I want to hit on one thing particular before I jump into what my whole Dak spiel. Yes, the whole story is that trust aspect. I think that is legitimately, and I know trust is an overused word, but the amount of trust that we have, like I know I can go to you and I can tell you exact offers that I've gotten and that I'm considering and that I'm pondering and that other people, or that I've sent out or whatever it may be. And I know you're not going to go out there and sabotage one of my trades. And I can't say that for my co-hosts. Okay. I can't say that for my other 2 co-hosts confidently. I can't say that.
I expect that from Davis, but Josh?
No, I will be honest about this. Like, exactly. I'm open with everyone. I just say listen, it's all business. And Mike, you've heard this from me. Unless it's in my inbox, it's not a real deal. Do with that information what you want. I've totally burned bridges.
I know that. And I've known it for almost 15 years now. Yeah. Of course, I know this. I know this of you.
I'm not a good person.
That's not what I'm saying. You're a good person. You're just not a, you lack ethics, fantasy ethics.
Principles. I have principles. I have certain lines I won't cross, but anyway, continue, Dylan.
No. Okay. So back to the Dak Prescott. So it's been a rough season for you, boy. So after last week, I got a lot of people reaching out to me about Dak Prescott. I had one of the owners reach out and say, hey, I'll give you Jordan Addison straight up for Dak Prescott. I had some other managers reach out and say, hey, what about a 25 first for Dak Prescott? And none of those really felt good enough, right? I mean, sending in, like we talked about, we're a 14-team super flex. So sending a quarterback away for only a 25 first or only Jordan Addison's a stud, don't get me wrong, but just sending him away for a single wide receiver just didn't sit right with me. And so I talked to Mike, and Mike, I think you may have said something originally about, oh, I've got 2 firsts that I'm willing to work
Yeah.
with.
You said you were thinking 2 firsts for Dak. I was like, I was like, don't hold me to this. And you and I are really good at, like, hey, just being honest with, we need to think this
Trust.
through. Don't hold me to it. But I got 2 firsts that if I were so inclined, I would send it to you for Dak. And my first was a 24 first attached to what is now a 7-2 team, 7-1 at the time, and my 25 first, which infamously I last got back in the George Pickens fiasco with Josh. So I said, if I were so inclined to get Dak, I could send you those 2 first. And Dylan said, I would have a tough time turning that down.
Yeah. So, and that, real quick before you go on, and that's the thing is, like, you sent a compelling offer, and I wasn't going to move off of Dak unless I felt like it was a compelling offer. And a lot of what I was going through for my team, and this is really for all the managers out there. I mean, we're midway through the season right now. You should create a grip on whether you're contending or not, and you should pivot. And this was my one opportunity to actually pivot. I didn't have any first. We've talked about the firsts are monopolized in both 24 and 25 by 2 separate teams, Josh being the 25 manager. And getting your hand on any of those picks when you can get a chance. Yes, selling Dak is a bummer, and it hurts emotionally as a Cowboys fan, as a wanting to hold on and cling to this hope of competing. But that was a compelling offer to send 2 firsts, and that's kind of where we got things going.
And it was so smart on your part, because that was a definitive direction that you took. And now, behind the 2 teams that have monopolized 24 and 25 first, I believe you have the 3rd best pick bounty over the next 2 years. So the trade ended up being Dak Prescott after a few extra discussions, because you want to really go all in on the picks. The trade ended up being Dak Prescott, James Conner, and Amari DeMarcado for the 24 first, projected late, but a 24 first nonetheless, rare. My 25 first, 2 24 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry. And I also got back 2 25 thirds. I left that out. So I got Dak, the Cardinals backfield, 2 25 thirds for 2 firsts and 2 seconds. So now Dylan is sitting pretty with picks. But then, wait, there's more. But he's sitting pretty with picks. Now I have a Dak Prescott, C.J. Stroud quarterback room with Anthony Richardson on IR for next year.
Oh my God.
So now I'm thinking, okay, wait a second, I got to go for it now. I didn't get Dak to not try to make the playoffs and contend. So my next move was a 25 second for Gus Edwards to add him to my running back room. This is where the relationship with me and Dylan is just special, if I may say. So we did the Zach Moss trade Thursday, the Dak Prescott trade Friday. Saturday, I'm chilling at home on Saturday. Why are you laughing, Josh? Because we need to get a room. We need to get a room.
You guys get on the podcast. You're both beautiful men with these nice beards. You got black hoodies on, and you got this random. This is literally the Dylan and Mike engagement announcement show. I love it. I'm
embracing the bromance. We got something good going. I got to give the speech at the wedding.
I got these best man. Yes, you will be the best man.
The synergy. Oh my Lord, 100%. It's fantastic.
So the last trade was we were just talking, and I forgot what wide receiver we were talking about. Might have been Nico Collins.
I believe it was.
Yeah, it might have been Nico Collins. Yeah. And I asked him about Christian Kirk, who was on his bench and on a bye. I said, Christian Kirk, like, what? I was like, I would start with a 25 second for Christian Kirk. I know that's not enough. What else could I put with Christian Kirk? You know what it was? I offered him Khalil Shakir in a 25 second for Christian Kirk. He was like, nah, not really feeling that. I would rather just hold. But again, just talking, right? And I said to him, well, let me ask you this. What if I gave you every single extra pick that I have, every pick not associated with me the next 2 years, except for that aforementioned 201 in the 24 draft, which means for Christian Kirk on Saturday, I sent Dylan a 25 second, a 24 third, a 24 fourth, two 25 fourths, and two 25 thirds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
7
6,
picks.
7 picks for Christian Kirk.
1 second and 3/3 and 3/4.
And he said yes. And so now, without giving everybody my whole roster, I have added in the last several days Dak Prescott, Zach Moss, Gus Edwards, Christian Kirk, and now I'm cooking with gas.
Yep.
Josh, you're dying to jump in. Go ahead.
No, I'm not.
Meanwhile, Dylan has a shit ton of picks. Dylan has a shit ton of picks now.
Dylan and you kind of swapped game plans mid-season, but we just have the episode title. He said yes. The trade marriage of Dylan and Mike. Like you just gave us everything we needed. That was fantastic. No, I just want to ask, Dylan, you've been such a Christian Kirk believer. I was really proud of you because you sold guys that you believe in. And a statement you have made throughout the show is you're pounding the table for certain guys. Christian Kirk, Dak Prescott, both guys you pounded the table for and performed throughout the season. It's really hard. I have this addiction to George Pickens. We've talked about my 5 stages of grief.
We talking about him.
We don't have to. He's not even on social media right now, so it's not like we need to bring him up. But I'm just saying, it is difficult getting rid of players you believe in when they're performing the way you expect them to. But looking at your roster, looking at where the season is, Mike, you saw a path to playoffs open up because everyone in Yacht Club is someone that looks at the schedule ahead of them. There's always one guy in every fantasy league who's mapped out the entire season schedule. If I trade with this guy, that's literally all of us. And so Dylan, you lost a couple kind of key matchups, weirdly enough, to teams you weren't expecting to. So you had the opposite problem Mike had, whereas Mike was like, wait a second, I wasn't planning to make playoffs. I had embraced youth. Mm-hmm. I did a study on both your teams before the show. Mike, you're still the second youngest team in the league via average age, and that's with a Taysom Hill on your roster. That's with who else was older? I mean, Dak's now 30, so that
Dak's not
moves
young,
the average. Yeah, no, exactly, but it moves the average age. So when I said he gets to have his cake and
Logan
eat too,
Thomas is on my team.
Logan Thomas, another one. You're right. So you've got some of these older win now players, but the core of your team is super young. CJ Stroud, what he just did, that was the best rookie QB performance ever. Bar none, ever. That's special. So I just compliment you both because it's just seeing the path ahead and planning ahead. This wasn't trades that were happening just to feel like something, happened. Right. But there was a lot of trades where it was that built the relationship up, where you guys trusted each other to make these blockbusters at the last second.
And this would have never happened 2 weeks ago. It's one of those also. It's relationship building, it's seeds planting, it is patience, and it's being willing to pivot. You can have an idea of what you want to do, but then when an opportunity presents itself, you got to pounce. And the opportunity to get Dak, I know it was hard for Dylan to trade him for the same reasons, but the opportunity to get a quarterback in a super flex league of Dak's caliber was just too good to pass up. And so it meant shifting courses and giving up all the picks I'd work hard to accumulate. Because a couple weeks ago, I was the one selling off all the running backs. Hell, it might have been last week. I don't remember. It all runs together. But I'm also proud of Dylan because Dylan now, and every Saturday, just as Wednesday is date night, I know what Dylan's doing on Saturday. He's watching college football. Yeah. And so now Dylan really gets to, show his stuff the next couple of years. Because he's been an F&M picks guy, but he's also a Debbie guy. And now he gets to use these picks to build a team for the long term and just rip that Band-Aid off because he wanted to compete, but it just wasn't going to be in the cards for him this year. And bravo for pivoting because I couldn't have told you that I would have CJ Stroud before this year. I didn't have the 103. I had the 104, and I took Anthony Richardson. I couldn't have predicted that I would have Dak Prescott. One thing about this league that I have learned is in a different way from the old saying. How the old saying is what goes around comes around? In the Yacht Club, who goes around comes around. You will get somebody back. Before it's all said and done, you will get a guy back because it's just so much activity in this league because so many of us are constantly hustling, Dylan.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about, right? We've talked about, Mike, you and I know we've had conversations about just because, and even a lot of the reason why I've been an FTP guy is because even if you don't have the picks, so often you can still go and get those guys after the draft, right? But what I'm stoked about is like now I get to actually kind of put my money where my mouth is, right? And actually practice this Devy kind of philosophy and build through the draft. I mean, people look at the Christian Kirk trade and say, oh, it's only 1 second and a bunch of garbage, a bunch of third and fourth. Like, how do you know that's not a Puka Nakua? How do you know that's not a Tank Dell? How do you know it's not a Sam Laporta? Like, how do you know it's not these guys? And that's just this year that we're talking about, right? Like the picks that I have are over the next 2 years. And so I just encourage people out there, if you are in the middle, just commit. And this is coming from the heart because it took me, we're in the 4th year of the Yacht Club, Yacht Club to actually fully commit to, you know what? Hope is the biggest killer in Dynasty Fantasy Football. I'm going to throw that out the window. And I'm going to put my hope in something else, which is building through the draft, and I'm excited to do it. So, and Mike, I do also want to say part of the reason why we get so many deals done is you are also so reasonable to deal with. Like you understand that you have to pay a certain price if you want a player that's not for sale or that isn't going to come with easy. Like it's right. Josh, it's true.
No,
he's one of the only people that I can go to and he's that reasonable.
Mike, something I appreciate, man, is when we started this process, and part of the reason we said yes to this opportunity was the coaching and all the mentorship you've given us behind the scenes. And you have preached about journalistic integrity. Dylan, I'm sorry. I had a franchise reach out. We've mentioned them before. We don't get into them or their team names. They're called the Final Rows. They posted a trade you sent them, and it looked nothing like the fair starting offers you send to Mike.
Oh, whoa, no. Those guys, that's a whole different story.
But here's my question, and this is what I want to get into. One, will you speak to what the trade was, number one? And then number two, like, if you're able to foster this great relationship with Mike, was that just innate from the start? Or,
from the start.
I mean, can you build bridges? Because the franchise in question, certainly I've had trouble getting deals done with them as well. But what you sent them, I was like, man, that's a little. It was slightly hypocritical if I'm remembering correctly.
No, let me. I'm sorry, I'm pulling up the trade. I think I know what it was. I think it was Desmond Ridder and Drake London for.
It was Nico Collins,
a second. and Darrell Henderson. Very disrespectful. Sure, these guys, I have to literally. I don't even have words dealing with these guys because they're so ridiculous. You know what they countered that trade with? They countered that trade with Jonathan Mingo for 4 seconds. Like, and they were being dead serious. How do you expect?
Here's what I'll say, Dylan. Here's what I'll say. Your standards don't need to drop to the level of your competition.
Fair.
And you cannot come on this show.
Let me justify this trade. Let me justify this trade. I didn't even talk about the players in the trade. Okay, so Drake London and Ridder. Ridder's a backup. Yeah. Why would they not? Ridder's a backup. If that, and he's not getting another chance. Like, I think it's pretty safe to say he's not getting another chance. So let's just write him off. So they would get Nico Collins a second for a team that needs draft capital, and Darrell Henderson. Sure, Darrell Henderson, whatever, doesn't fit their timeline. I don't think that's a terrible offer. How far apart is Drake London and Nico Collins?
That was my question. I don't know that I wouldn't take, after seeing what CJ Stroud could do, I might go Nico Collins over Drake London in a vacuum right now, because if Jonnu Smith is the tight end one, for all we know, Kelvin Hodge is going to be the wide receiver one in Atlanta, unless Arthur Smith gets fired.
We're gonna get back to Arthur Smith before the show's over, but I want to bring it back to Dylan and I's directions here. So, one, Dylan, what is your next move? Because I have heard a rumor that you are making a play for a young quarterback yourself who's more on that long-term rebuilding timeline. This is real sexy rumor making the rounds.
Oh, I didn't even know this was out and about.
I mean, a little,
I don't know if
word around a
sexy is the
campfire.
right term.
I think Will Levis. I think acquiring Will Levis is very sexy for a guy in your position, Dylan. Yeah. So what is your offer that you put out for Will Levis?
Yeah. So I mean, I had put out an original offer for Will Levis, but it was a little bit lower than the manager was expecting. I don't even remember what I offered. I think I offered him Nico
Derek
Collins.
Carr.
No. I offered him Derek Carr. I offered him Derek Carr in a second, I believe. Not close. I asked him, so what's going to get this deal done? He said probably Derek Carr in first for Will Levis.
I would do that.
You
I would
would.
do that. If I were you, I would do that.
If
I would do
so,
that.
I don't know that what I'm hesitant on is I wouldn't do a 24 first. I would consider 25 first.
25, yeah. It's my
I wouldn't do the
25.
24 first.
And I'm telling you, I'm going to kill that pick for you.
I appreciate that. But as much as I love Will Levis,
More than Brock Purdy is what
I
you
do
said.
like him more than Brock Purdy. I wouldn't even consider Carr and a first for Brock Purdy. Like, I genuinely would not consider that because for the timeline's sake, I just don't think it'll work. I love Will Levis. I just got these picks, and we
That's
talked
true.
about this in negotiations.
Don't let them burn a hole in your pocket. Don't let them burn a hole in your pocket.
Don't let them burn a hole in your pocket. But also, when you first get them, they're just so much more sexy, right? You just want to stare at them and scroll to your team and look at, I got all. So that's part. I'm not gonna lie, that's part of it. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that deal right now. I'm just not chomping at the bit to go and do it. But I do like Will Levis. And if you have multiple firsts, I would do that in a heartbeat. Carr and a first for Will Levis, yeah.
All right. Well, spend the picks I sent you wisely. Meanwhile, I'm at 4 and 5. I think I got a good shot to, dare I say it, win out. If not, win 8 games, make the playoffs, maybe make some noise. All right. We're going to go to break now. And when we come back, we are going to talk more about CJ Stroud and some other breakout superstar performances from week 9. Dylan, I know you were an A-Rich guy from day one when it came to the 2023 class of rookie quarterbacks. And early on, A-Rich flashed enough to maintain that status. Obviously struggled staying on the field, but when he was on the field, he was every bit as dynamic as we thought, and more polished of a passer than many people thought he would be. But CJ Stroud has taken this discussion and discarded it altogether. Like, there is no more discussion, there's no more debate, there's no more deliberation about who is the cream of this particular crop. CJ Stroud has transcended any discussion or any comparison between him and Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, and he has now catapulted himself, both in reality and in fantasy, specifically for our purposes, dynasty, catapulted himself with an unprecedented performance against Tampa into the conversation about where is he in terms of just best quarterbacks, period. Am I right, Josh?
Completely. I mean, it's funny. I was in a separate fantasy group chat today, and someone was asking like where Dak ranked. And it's that moment where Dak is always flirting with like the top 10 thing. And the first 5 I named, CJ Stroud was number 5. And someone was like, really? Has he done it already? I'm like, yeah. And here's why. CJ Stroud didn't have the best fantasy day on the ground in a weird game script where he rushed in for 3 or 4 touchdowns. I talked about Marcus Mariota a couple weeks in his debut game with the Titans. He threw 4 touchdowns, but they were all in the red zone. CJ Stroud threw for almost 500 yards and elevated every single offensive piece around him. Only the greats can do that. Peyton Manning made Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne unbelievable. Like, they elevated do you guys remember, Peyton Manning in Denver? He did the same thing. Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas. If CJ Stroud is making Dalton Schultz look all pro, as well as a Tank Dell, as well as a Nico Collins, as well as a Noah Brown, who frankly should be on a practice squad if he was on any other team. That's only the special ones can do that. And no disrespect to A-Rich, unbelievable, physically gifted guy. I saw nothing in his game that told me he's going to elevate people. I saw that he's going to scramble like crazy. You know what I mean? And that's not to say he can't do that. I'm simply saying what we saw was a masterpiece. And also, this could get missed. That the situation called for him to do that. This was not in garbage time. This was not in a meaningless. Right. He went down with 39 seconds and won a game and also was fantasy relevant. This was not stat padding. This was not. It's unbelievable what we saw. It needs to be appreciated.
Yeah, Dylan, I mean, the knock on Stroud coming out was 2 things. First of all, the S2 test could kiss my ass. I mean, whether he can process
such a made-up test.
I think he can process just fine. And the other thing was his athleticism. He hadn't shown a whole lot of mobility or playmaking ability off schedule at Ohio State until the Georgia game. Well, he comes into the league. He moves Joe Burrow-like, Dylan, in such a way where it's like, he buys time, but he's producing, again, both in reality, but for our purposes in fantasy, 55 points. Thank you guys for the 6-point touchdowns. Y'all know I'm a 4-point touchdown guy. Appreciate the 6-point when it suits me. But he was productive from the pocket, old school, Dylan.
Yeah,
traditional.
I mean, that's and that's what you want. That's why Justin Herbert was so touted, right? Like he scrambled. I think they scrambled about the same amount, right? I mean, we have a small sample size for Stroud, but like Justin Herbert didn't scramble a whole lot, but he was a pocket passer. That's what CJ Stroud is, and CJ Stroud I think will be and can be better than what Justin Herbert's proven to be. I'm not going to jump the gun. I know the CJ Stroud hype, insane. I think he's a top 5 quarterback. I'm not arguing that, but you know who's a top 4 quarterback? Anthony Richardson.
Stop.
I am not
You're talking dynasty.
I'm talking dynasty.
Yeah,
I'm talking
okay,
dynasty.
just
Okay,
fantasy.
dynasty.
Just fantasy.
Dynasty.
Okay.
No, oh yeah,
There's
yeah.
an
I'm not
argument to
talking
be made.
NFL. No. We're a dynasty fantasy football show. I'm taking
Yeah.
it
There
back
we
to
are.
dynasty.
Got it. Okay, cool.
I'm still not out on A-Rich. I think what we saw was enough to show. And I know you say you didn't see much, Josh. You're right. He didn't have a huge sample size, but we saw that he was a capable passer with a rocket of an arm and a very, very capable runner. So when he comes back healthy next season, I still think he has the opportunity to be more fantasy productive and relevant than CJ Stroud. But I mean, CJ Stroud, hats off. I mean, Mike, you've got 2 top, at the very least, top 8. You've got at least 2 top 8 without argument. I mean,
I got a both.
The whole time I'm thinking that
that's just
the CJ Stroud owner might disagree with your take.
And you've also got Tank Dell, and you've also got Josh Downs. So it's like you've got the stacks there. I mean, Michael Pittman, sure, maybe the one, and Nico Collins, whatever. But you've got 2 solid guys as well to go with him. And I mean, CJ Stroud, man, is he top 5 for sure to you guys? Do you guys agree
dynasty?
that he's?
Oh yeah.
Is he behind A-Rich still for you guys, or where?
No.
I would put him ahead of A-Rich right now, just because he stayed on the field.
Bias.
No, it's not that. It's he stayed on the field, and coming out of Ohio State, and nothing we've seen changes this in the NFL. He was always a more polished passer, and when you can put up 55 points just from the pocket with your arm, like I think they're just any of the 2-point conversion for that matter. But I mean, A-Rich, I love his upside. He might break fantasy, but we just haven't seen it yet. So I would say it's not recency bias. It's just we've seen more from Stroud. We just saw him at the best rookie passing performance of all time.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, Justin Herbert. I mean, we would probably say that those 2 are above Justin Herbert, right? A-Rich and Stroud for fantasy football purposes. No,
but I'm biased.
No, I would say a body of work says something. There's a conversation to be had for Stroud. There absolutely is a conversation to be had for Stroud for me, because the longevity I believe is going to be there. Like Mike is saying, if you're doing it from the pocket, you're not risking your body. You're not going to be risking injury. So there's going to be those seasons where the touchdowns don't come. And you actually saw this from Stroud at the start of the season. Mike, you remember the first couple of weeks, he was throwing like touchdowns at like a 4% rate. Like this last game, 5 touchdowns. He still had to throw 500 yards to do it. So for fantasy purposes, it's like, okay, maybe the upside of an A-Rich isn't there every single week or even every single season. But for Stroud to do what he did in his rookie year, which is better than whatever Herbert did in his rookie year in a single game basis, I will take the upside. We haven't even seen the ceiling yet. With the baseline of Herbert, I would take that over the unknown of A-Rich any
But we're all excited about Stroud. I mean, let's honestly pump the brakes, and not because we don't want to do this we don't want to have this conversation at the risk of our collective credibility. Like, to put either of these guys in the top 5 right now, like, who are you taking out? Because the top 5 at quarterback is almost airtight. It's Mahomes, it's Hurts, it's Burrow, it's Allen, it's Lamar. I don't think anybody is taking.
I don't think for fantasy.
I think Lamar's
out. Yeah,
I think
no,
Lamar
absolutely.
may be the odd man out. Yeah, for fantasy.
Absolutely.
Really?
The top 4,
Okay.
and I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to go back and correct that. I don't think A-Rich is 4. I don't think Stroud is. The 5 position is one of those.
One of Herbert. Them. What about Herbert? So
I'm taking Stroud and A-Rich over
Herbert. Yeah, because it's the upside play. You're splitting hairs. Like, Mike, is there any concern out of what you've seen that Stroud isn't going to get a long-term deal now? I mean, I feel not to say that one game alone is going to guarantee a long-term contract.
I mean, he's the guy. They got a guy. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, rookies tend to sometimes they miss. You think they're good, and then they don't get that second contract. No, he's going to be there for a long time. And 2 guys that I'm not looking to trade anytime soon. But I do want to tell a story about Stroud because again, I didn't have the 103. I didn't draft him. But the moral of that story, I think, is important as we talk about just navigating dynasty. Because you guys know me, and we've talked about this. I'm not one of these guys that feels like, now, I mean, what I paid for a player will factor into my thinking. But if I want to move off a player, and it's unrealistic for me to expect that same return, I'm okay with taking a quote unquote loss. For example, on the CJ Stroud trade, I got him back along with my 25 first and maybe some other stuff when I sent Justin Fields back to Davis for much less than what I paid to acquire Justin Fields in the first place. But in that moment, I wanted to get somebody who was more on my timeline, Stroud, who was more reliable from a health standpoint, Stroud, and in the process, reacquire my 25 first. Same thing with you, Josh, when it came to George Pickens. I wanted to get my 25 first back, which I sent to you for George Pickens, because I just felt like I wanted to have my first back, even if it meant a loss. I mean, we kind of broke even, but a loss in the form of Jake Ferguson, which is working out well for you. Point being is what I felt like I needed to do. Christian Watson. I traded Christian Watson to Dylan for less than what I paid for him. Dylan couldn't move him fast enough. That's looking great right now for both of us, man. Just getting out from under Christian Watson. Point being, just do the trade you think needs to be done. Perception be damned. You know, I don't care what somebody says about like, oh, well, you traded this. This is, you know, this is a bad. Look what you paid for him. Now look what you traded for him. Well, this is bad. No, it's what I feel like I needed to do.
I think that's a T-shirt right there. Perception be damned. That is a T-shirt.
Perception be damned.
Perception be damned. I like that.
Because the picks that I traded, that I got from you, Dylan, for Christian Watson, I probably use them. Maybe they get Dak. Maybe they get. I don't know what I use.
They're probably on my team again. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I ended up with C.J. Stroud. Whereas right now, Justin Fields. I mean, good luck, Josh. But I mean, you know, it's. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, the gap certainly. I mean, first of all, C.J. Stroud is worth more than Justin Fields right now in any
hands down.
Correct.
Yeah. So. I love the twinning is winning that you guys are doing. It's like, that's my philosophy. Yeah, man, it's my philosophy.
No, like, but even Tank Dell.
Yeah.
Dylan, remember, I drafted Tank Dell in the 3rd round of the rookie draft, traded him to you. No, I'm sorry. I traded him to another owner who then traded him to you. Then I reacquired him for a 2nd round pick because I wanted him. People were like, oh, you overpaid for Tank Dell. I'm like, no, you cannot overpay for somebody you want, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I got Tank Dell back thanks to that. You about to say something, Josh? I'm sorry.
No, dude. Listen. First of all, what you have done, coming from an expansion team, just on a metrics basis, right? Like we should not worship keep trade cut at all. But it is interesting. You're ahead of me on keep trade cut. You were like team number 14 when we started because we gave you so little to start with. I think the message here is never stop hustling. You can always don't be scared to make a deal for sure. But that being said, look at the Rams right now. And the only thing I want to caution you, Mike, and really the listener is you can put it all on the credit card and feel really good about a triumphant week that you just had. Yeah. And this isn't to try to bring you back down or anything. Like your team is young, it's good, it's great. But, you know, the rent comes due. And there's this belief that you can't always hit on every risky trade you make. Dylan, the reason I don't think you should trade for a Will Levis is because now you have enough capital. When you want to buy him, how much more is he going to be worth than Derek Carr and a first? Derek Carr and 2 firsts, if he does hit, maybe. The whole idea about holding picks is you don't run the risk of them depreciating in value. And so, Mike, you've put together a playoff roster that is also young, but a couple bad beats, you may not have the same flexibility as normal. And so it feels good today. But I don't think we can wave the banner and be like, this is the method. And also,
so let me ask you
you out hustle everybody. Let's just be clear. Like the way you did this, the way you got Christian Kirk, you were about to drop a player. You'll call me, Walsh, this guy for a 4th could really help your roster. Like you don't let any transaction go to waste. That's why it works. But as a whole, most people should not go get their guy for no matter the cost because.
Not no matter the cost.
I said most people.
But Dylan, not no matter the cost, I would just say like if it feels right, like it's all going to even out. Like you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. It's about conviction. It's not no matter the cost, but get your guy that you have conviction on. And for me, even if it seemed like an overpay, we've talked about this. You're in real estate, Josh. If you're not trying to move out of your house, I can't go pay what it says on Zillow. Like I got to make you an offer that makes you move the guy. Dylan wasn't looking to move Dak Prescott. I had to make him an offer in order to get him to move off of Dak Prescott. And that offer, in terms of the trade calculator, Dylan, was very much in your favor. But it was
exactly,
it was what I wanted to do and what I needed to do.
exactly. And Josh, we talked about this earlier. Part of the overpay philosophy is you've got to be early. If you go in late, you're going to overpay in a bad way. Whereas if you maybe you've got to, it's a conviction and it's a discernment thing, right? Like you've got to know what you're actually paying for.
No
so
risk
like
it,
earlier,
no biscuit, for sure.
like when Michael's talking about Tank Dell, he spent a second on Tank Dell. At that time, it's like, oh my gosh, you just drafted him in third. You're going to spend a second to get him. Now that trade looks brilliant. I did the same thing with Nico Collins, where I traded Mike
me a second for
Nico Collins. And everyone's like, oh my, an overpay for a backup wide receiver. And so, it's like, it's based on conviction. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And that's just fantasy football.
No, if the tagline to every listener is, if you make a great dynasty trade, it's going to look stupid in the first month of you doing it. Most likely. Perception be damned correctly, because it doesn't pay off instantly. It is not if everyone thinks you want to trade in a dynasty league the moment you make it, be careful. That should worry you way more than everyone dogging on you, because things change so quick. Like everyone's there are so many trades you can track in our league and in every league where it was like, we all laughed at you and then we all just kind of left the joke alone, because 3 weeks later it's like, wait a minute. Mike, great example. In another week we planned, just real quickly, Dylan, Davis was going at you because he traded Treylon Burks and Dallas Goedert. He acquired them by trading you Devontae Smith. And he had some great receivers, so he had excess. He would not let you live it down. And he was like, look at Mike, overpaying, posted the keep trade cut numbers. He's real quiet about that trade now.
We don't look too bad.
It was Treylon Burks and Joe Mixon, but yes,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Still doesn't look bad. Well, I was going to say,
Goddard?
No, that was another trade.
That was a different trade.
Okay. Forgive me. Yeah.
What I was going to say is an example of a trade that is poor discernment and what you shouldn't overpay for is spending multiple firsts on Justin Fields. That is something in the moment where you should definitely feel dumb for.
Listen, but I was the first one.
Josh, no words.
I broke the trade calculator.
Did you listen to the speech I just gave? Thank you.
I got to kick you in the teeth.
One of the people I gave away was Christian Watson, who's how can you play both sides? Oh, my Lord. He has a bigger sample size of being a physical specimen, has shown more than Anthony Richardson ever has on the field, and you're out because of situation. This is absolutely – I traded 2 firsts for him and Christian Watson, who is sinking like the Titanic, and we just get done all agreeing on perception be damned, and you're like, hey, Josh, Justin Fields, yeah.
I'm not speaking on Justin Fields.
He pleads the fifth on that one.
I'm just now recovering. I broke the trade calculator when I traded for Justin Fields. Thankfully, I recovered. But but Josh, your point about so my pick situation is I have all of my 24 and 25 seconds. This league, we're not allowed to trade 26 capital, but I have all my 24 and 25 second, third, and fourth. I beg your pardon. I'm just missing my 24 first and my 25 first. But again, I can identify where that value went. Indirectly, my 24 first is CJ Stroud. Directly, my 25 first is Dak Prescott. I can live with that. But I have my seconds, thirds, and fourths, and I have an extra second again at 201 in 2024. Had another piece of good fortune this week. And I told you I want to save it for the podcast. You said you mentioned it to me on the phone, Josh, but now I want to talk it through. I drafted in the 4th round. Don't ever let anybody tell you that 4th rounders are worthless. I love 4th rounders. As a matter of fact, in this league, I had 8 straight 4th rounders. With the 408, I drafted Puka Nacua. With the 405, I drafted Keaton Mitchell. Have him in my taxi squad. Had him stashed all year, waited for him. Knew this moment was coming. Didn't know it was coming to the tune of 138 yards, but I knew this moment was coming. You think I should trade him? You think I should sell him high, Josh?
I do. Absolutely. Unequivocally.
Wow.
What's high? What do you think I can get for me if I put him on a block in Yacht Club right now?
See, we're a tough league, man. We really are. So I think you could easily get a second. I don't know if that's worth it to you. I don't know that I would even do that, to be honest with you, because he's young. So it really depends on what you could package him with to go get someone you believe in more. Like, could you flirt with, Davis is Derrick Henry. More in a vacuum, I would say you should sell high on Keaton Mitchell. But knowing the economy of our league, you would be hard pressed to get something good unless you're getting a receiver you believe in, something like if you could get let's use Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, there's going to be a gap between him and Keaton Mitchell, but how far is that gap? Is it a third? Is it a fourth? Is someone running back desperate? Like Keaton Mitchell's such a wild card. You just don't know, because you only have that one game of him going crazy. But the reason I think you should sell high, he only was used on 18% of snaps, right? Gus Edwards still getting the goal line work. I'm not saying that what Keaton Mitchell did wasn't impressive. He looked the part, but Dylan will remember this. Our junior high football coach would never shut up about one player, and it's the Ravens running back I know the most,
Justin Forsett.
we would have off-season training, and he would talk about the work ethic of Justin Forsett, undrafted free agent guy, and just in a John Harbaugh offense. And I know John Harbaugh's not the offensive coordinator; it's Todd Monken. I'm simply saying the Ravens as a culture have productive running backs. Mark Ingram had great years there. People don't remember that. They just go through guys like candy. And Mike, you're one of the first guys to say you're a zero running back guy, right? Now that Keaton Mitchell's no longer a zero, why shouldn't you re-roll with a stronger asset if someone believes in him? But it really does depend on what you can get for him. So,
I think Keaton Mitchell's actually the perfect zero RB back because of his ability and the player that he profiles as. Like Keaton Mitchell, I know a lot of people may not know him. He ran a 4.3 at the combine, a low 4.3. This dude is lightning fast, and he could take it to the house from anywhere, like we saw. He's very similar, and I'm not comparing him to them necessarily, but like a Devon Achane, where
exactly
Devon Achane is smaller back, but we know he has track speed, can take it to the house from anywhere. I think what's his name? Keaton Mitchell. He did it on 4 touches, I believe, or on 4 carries.
No, he had 9 carries and 1 reception.
Nine carries and 1 reception. But I mean, 10 total touches, and he took he had 100+ yards. Like he's the perfect zero RB back because he's young, because he's fast, because he can take it to the house from anywhere. And that offense, it's centered around Lamar. Lamar may not be having an incredible fantasy year, but he's opening up that offense for everyone else. And if he's a threat, every other running back is a threat as well.
So the reason I'm reluctant to move off of him is what zero running back has done for me. It allows me flexibility.
It's true.
Actually, I'll come back to this later because there's another trade possibility that I'm gonna run by you guys. But I'll just say this: keeping a Keaton Mitchell gives me license to move somebody else that might be older, might be more established, but I got Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell with that running game. I'll start them both. And I wouldn't normally start 2 guys, but I would start them both. But the other part of it is when you have a 4th rounder, it was the same thing I ran into with Puka Nacua. What could you give me for Puka Nacua that makes it worthwhile to cash in a 4th? Like, I spent so little to get him, I might as well hold him. I don't need a return on that investment. Let me just hold Puka Nacua and let him be great. Let me just hold Keaton Mitchell and let him be great. Like, because if I'd have traded in the preseason with you, Josh, you'd have given me a second for Puka Nacua.
Bro, I tried, man. I should have given you a first.
Davis offered me 2 firsts for Puka Nacua. I said no.
Well,
Puka
this
Nacua
is before he broke out.
Right. But I'm saying he's a top 8 wide receiver now. It's like, I think sometimes you just got to hold on guys, especially if you're not pressed to cash out. There are guys that I will cash out on. I cashed out on Marvin Mims, who, congratulations, Josh, at least listen to Sean Payton. They want to feature him more in the second half. I got frustrated. I went ahead and cashed out on him. But you may have gotten him at the perfect time. So I'm not always patient, but I feel like if I'm going to spend a 4th rounder on somebody, unless you're going to drastically overpay, which what does a second do for me when I might as well keep Mitchell?
Right. No, even as I said it's the economy matters, right? Like, I just think most listeners, there's such recency bias in their league. People might get crazy with the Keaton Mitchell, but you're right to some extent. It's like, it's house money, and why not see what he turns into? Because the other thing about that 18% snap percentage, it was a blowout game. Rest your stars. Put in Justice Hill. Like, Gus Edwards got 5 carries. It wasn't like any of the stars were needed. So you can see what he turns into. I'm simply saying that that's not going to be the average for him. That's not going to be the mean. And it is still a crowded backfield. Gus Edwards isn't going anywhere. So if someone gets crazy, it's not about moving off of a player you have conviction about. It's about taking a player you have conviction on and using him to go buy a player you have even more conviction on. It's just a question of who is that person.
What's tricky about trading away like a Keaton Mitchell is what's the point in trading away a Keaton Mitchell, that specifically that kind of tier running back? You're not going to get what you think you should get value-wise, but you're going to continue to get production. So there's really no point in moving off of them. That's kind of my philosophy with running backs. Really, RB, let's call it 15 through 30, those guys, what's the point in moving off of them if you're going to get consistent production from them? No one's going to give, like, you're not getting a second for Keaton Mitchell. Unfortunately, I don't think someone in our league is going to give you a second. So
I'll give you a second for him. Would I give you a second for him?
I don't know if you have any seconds left. I might have took them all from you, but
yeah. So sorry, only dealing firsts now.
Yeah, exactly. No, but he might be a gateway to another trade, which I'll touch on in a second. Before we go to another break, though, do want to talk about your team, Josh. We talked about Dylan's direction that he has taken definitively with conviction. I feel like I can make a run to the playoffs with this team I have assembled. Now, Josh, we mentioned you got Jake Ferguson looking pretty good. You loved him. You begged me for him in both leagues that we played in.
Begged you for him? Oh, my Lord.
Well, okay, I'll rephrase it.
We negotiated that deal for like
no, but you really wanted him.
I did.
You really wanted him. Like you wanted him the moment I drafted him in the startup in another league. You wanted him the moment I acquired him in this league. You have Marvin Mims, who, again, for whatever it's worth, Peyton wants to feature more in the second half of the season. Jordan Love, I love to know where you are with Jordan Love, but really, we referenced him earlier, I love to know where you are with George Pickens, because word around the campfire is, when it comes to Josh, is that Salty McGriddles is way more concerned about talent than character. And so I'm wondering if your locker room would be better served by you moving on for George Pickens.
I'd like to make a statement in regards to that. My franchise, known as Salty McGriddles, because we have been living like Jerry since 2019. And if you're not aware, Jerry Jones salts the crap out of his McGriddles. And much like Jerry Jones, I will say it on the record. If you are super talented, we will bury the bodies in the backyard. We do not care. That is not our job. If you are super, super good at producing fantasy points, that is our concern here. I have a trade out for Deshaun Watson right now, because I think he's a buy low candidate. Yeah, absolutely. We only want people that are going to produce on the football field and the fantasy.
You buy low on character.
Absolutely. I think it's an overrated metric in fantasy football. I don't, that's between them and the higher powers.
I mean, I'm talking about the character. Forget the character. When you get, what is it, one catch, -2 yards? I don't even know what he had. I was at the game.
Okay, on the field, that's a problem.
I don't know what all I know is he could have had a touchdown at the Thursday night game. And other than that, he did nothing. He was the first one out of the building. Like,
that I did.
That seems like a combustible. You spoke to him about that, though?
I did.
I said a combustible situation going on.
I said, talk your talk, walk your walk. But if you don't drag that toe, you're not showing up, on this show. And he understood. And that's why he kind of already bridged the gap and said everyone was overreacting to him unfollowing the Steelers. Here's what I'll say, though.
What do you have, -1 yard? I don't have it in front of me. So
-2. He had -2 yards. Or no. He had -1 yard. He had 2 catches for -1 yard.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So
get rid of that dude. Like, just seriously, get rid
absolutely
of him.
not. No.
Josh.
Okay, let's just use some facts here, right? And I'm not saying he's at this caliber yet. Stephon Diggs in the preseason deletes all the Bills' social media, sends out cryptic tweets. It's rumored that he's telling the Cowboys, "Hey, come get me. I want to play with my brother." We don't bat an eye, okay? A.J. Brown looks like he's about to take the head off of Jalen Hurts on the sideline in a game he wasn't heavily featured in because he didn't catch any touchdowns. He had a bomb touchdown called back. We don't bat an eye. This is only a storyline. Receivers are divas.
I'm giving you shit because it's George Pickens. No,
exactly.
Honestly.
You just named Stephon Diggs and A.J. Brown. We're talking about George Pickens.
Right. No. I'm not even talking about any of them. I'm talking about Kenny Pickett. And for the time being, I'm talking about Matt Canada, who's probably probably the last year there. His contract is up. I worry about George Pickens' situation. Whereas A.J. Brown is attached to Jalen Hurts.
I know. Jalen Hurts,
Diggs,
Justin Fields,
Josh Allen. I mean, come on. Yeah.
I mean, Kenny Pickett, we talked about C.J. Stroud earlier. C.J. Stroud already has more touchdowns than Kenny Pickett has in 1.5 season, or I guess technically now a full season for Kenny Pickett because he started midseason. But that's pretty crazy that C.J. Stroud already.
And the Steelers are 5-3. Mike Tomlin is the greatest coach of all time, dude.
He might be. All right, so you're
Oh.
good with George Pickens. You're not. Can't get you
No,
to get
I
him
mean
up for cheap.
it's no, but it's about timeline. Like this, he's a super
He's
young
22.
receiver, and yeah,
Yeah.
and if he's unhappy with the Steelers, good. I'm unhappy with the Steelers. 160 passing yards does not make for fantasy goodness. Free me. I told him to send that, man. That was me. Free us, George. Go
Oh
to
man.
like Kansas City. Help us both out,
Well,
man.
listen. As bad as it is in Pittsburgh, it could be Atlanta. We'll get into the Falcons and Arthur Smith after this. All right, guys. We talked a lot about my blockbusters. Had another big trade today that did not involve me in the Yacht Club. It involved Bijan Robinson. And to understand the magnitude, the gravity of Davis, the highest scoring team in the league, the number one seed as of right now in the league, he has a super team. To understand the significance of him moving on from Bijan Robinson, you got to understand that Davis and I spent hours and hours over days and weeks when I joined the league negotiating for the rookie 101 because he had to have Bijan Robinson. And Davis would admit it. He when he gets his sights set on something, when he gets something in his crosshairs, when he gets a bone, he is a dog with a bone. Like he will not stop until he gets what he wants. We finally agreed to the trade. He drafts Bijan Robinson. But Bijan, it just really goes to show, guys, and I say this affectionately and respectfully, and I only say it from a fantasy perspective. It goes to show what an asshole Arthur Smith is, that he has driven somebody to trade Bijan Robinson 9 weeks into the season. Now, Davis, I'll speak for Davis. Davis traded Bijan Robinson. I'll tell you what he traded for, what he got for him in a second. Traded Bijan Robinson because Davis was really inspired by Matthew Berry on this show when Matthew said, flags fly forever. So Davis is all in on this year winning a championship. So he trades Bijan Robinson to another contending team that's 7-2. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier for Alvin Kamara and Keenan Allen. Very much a win now move. The other contender gets another young running back. He also has Jahmyr Gibbs. So, made sense for both teams.
And ETN.
And Travis Etienne.
That's a whole other discussion. Can you build around young running backs? Like that's really interesting.
We'll find out. But I think what's more fascinating for the purpose of this conversation is is it so bad in Atlanta that a generational running back, you'd be better served moving on from him? He's still the dynasty RB1. Is that just a win now move, or in general, guys, are you panicked about Bijan Robinson in Atlanta so long as Arthur Smith is his coach? And for that matter, we've been talking about free Kyle Pitts for the last couple of years. Drake London, though he was hurt last week with the groin injury, but whether it's Drake London, whether it's Kyle Pitts, whether it's Bijan Robinson, it's almost like he is revolting and protesting against the top 10 picks that his organization has spent on skill position players. I don't know what's going on, but to me, the trade that happened in Yacht Club today with Bijan Robinson getting moved by Davis speaks to just how maddening Josh Arthur Smith is.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say in regards to trading Bijan away. I think Arthur Smith, first of all, losing to a Josh Dobbs, like with zero work on the playbook.
Hey, he's a
Arthur
dude.
Smith's. No, first of all, I'm a huge. I think they're calling him the Pastronaut because he's both a rocket scientist and an incredible QB. Josh Dobbs is awesome. I love watching him play. But like Arthur Smith, not Alex Smith, is in the hot seat more than Bijan is. I would not be panicking and trading away Bijan because if you took him at the 101 in a dynasty league, you're saying this is a piece for the future. The problem is if you're so win now that you're trading away Bijan, who's still at least somewhat serviceable in my opinion, it just means you really are like truly, truly all in. So it was a bold move, very on brand for Davis, but like, yeah, Arthur Smith, dude, like here's the problem. It's not that you're utilizing your whole team. It's not that Jonnu Smith is a bad player. It's okay. You had several top 10 picks.
He is.
Apparently. But the issue is like, why use these top 10 picks and not get a quarterback, not address what is your glaring need? Because I love Taylor Heineke as well. He started the season as a backup and was supposed to be the backup. You can't thumb your nose at all the analysts and all the experts and all the outside opinions that say you need to draft a QB, and then say, well, no, I'm taking these crazy offensive weapons, and then keep them in the garage. Like,
Yeah.
dude, drive the car you bought. Bijan is incredible. Kyle Pitts is supposed to be incredible. Drake London, at least once a week when you throw him the ball, will make a highlight reel play. So it's infuriating, but I think the reality is this is probably the last season of Arthur Smith unless that team does something miraculous. And based on the way they're playing right now, I don't think it's going to happen. So I would just wait it out. But Mike, you're more of an NFL insider. Is there any chance Arthur Smith doesn't get? What would it take for Arthur Smith not to get fired at the end of this year?
I mean, listen, his record isn't bad. I don't know off the top of my head, but his record isn't bad.
He's 4-5 right now.
Yeah. No, but I mean, just his tenure in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not like he's been awful. It seems like he's been more frustrating to us on the exterior, the fantasy community, than he has been to Arthur Blank, Terry Fontenot, and the Falcons organization. Falcons fans can't stand Arthur Smith for all the reasons we talk about, but I don't know that it would take a collapse. This team would have to fall apart.
Really.
And they're not in a great division. They could still win this division. I mean, the Saints seem to be trying to assert themselves, but they could win a division. If they win a division and go to the playoffs, he keeps his job. But Bijan is still young. Yeah, some coach, if he does get let go, and people have gotten let go with winning records before. If he does get let go, some coach will come in and properly utilize Bijan Robinson. I would have to imagine.
I agree. I mean, you've got a Ferrari, you're going to drive it, right? You're going to drive it. I don't know why Arthur Smith refuses to do so, but this discussion to me is more so a value discussion. If you held on to the 101, or if you went and attained the 101 to go and get Bijan, like we talked about, why would you sell him now at that value? Now, Davis's situation is different. I get it. He's going all in. I still think he sold low on a Bijan Robinson compared to especially what he paid you, Mike, to get Bijan Robinson, right? I think compared to that price, and what the 101 was going for in the offseason in various leagues was asinine, right? It was insane. So to sell him now, when I get it, he's trying to lock in a championship for this year, but we know his team. I don't know that the two guys that he got in that trade bolster his chances any better, because all that does is make start-sit decisions even more challenging, right? To overthink. So for me, the Bijan Robinson, I like Bijan Robinson. If you went and drafted him at the 101, like Josh said, you are more than likely hoping for a future piece. If so, hold on to him. There's no way, I don't see a world where a generational player like Bijan Robinson doesn't get utilized in that offense. It could happen. We've seen it. Players like J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers, where they go on this tear at towards the middle, back half of the season. We've seen it. So I don't know what the philosophy is.
You know what it reminds me of? This is way more frustrating than I remember it being. It reminds me of Chester Taylor and Adrian Peterson. Brad Childress, when he drafted Adrian Peterson with the 7th overall pick, if I recall correctly, and he still had Chester Taylor, who they'd gotten as a free agent from Baltimore, and he had run for 1,000 yards, and he was a good back, and he was splitting carries. He had Adrian Peterson returning kicks, and he was splitting carries. It's like, dude, it's Adrian Peterson. Eventually wised up, and Adrian Peterson was the guy. So, I don't know what it is, but what I do appreciate about the trade, though, and I think this is what we've all talked about. It's been the theme of this show. As much as we, had a bromance going between me and Dylan, and obviously Josh, I love you too.
Thank you.
You have to be unemotional about dynasty.
Yeah.
Right.
You cannot hold on to a guy because, you're a fan of the player, or because you're worried about being embarrassed, or you're worried about what people are going to say. It's like you got to make pragmatic, practical decisions. And so I commend Davis for saying, you know what? I love the player, but I'm trying to win a championship. And the best path to winning a championship is to get a guy that's going to get volume in Alvin Kamara and the number one receiver for Justin Herbert. Because he's got some question marks on his roster. And I think it's going to be about depth. Speaking of depth, last thing I want to ask you guys, there is an opportunity for me. That's what I was referencing earlier. There might be an opportunity. It's not etched in stone. But Jordan Addison is available again. I drafted him with the 108. Ended up trading him in the Fields debacle. I'd love to get him back. I'm thinking about packaging Christian Kirk and James Conner / Amari DeMarcado for Jordan Addison to a win now team.
That's a smash accept.
I think
I
for
was
you, that's
just
a
curious
smash
on the
accept.
price. I was curious on the price. I was like, oh, don't go get Addison again. This is gonna. If that's the price, I think it's great. Like it's that
Oh.
perfect have your cake and eat it too model of you have a productive win now at peace, but he's super young and his future's bright. So you because you don't have
the
your choice
Addison
in the next
owner,
2 years.
the Addison owner needs depth because the Addison owner is a guy that just acquired Bijan Robinson, like we just mentioned. So he needs depth. I'm willing to play the long game and get an Addison and sacrifice some depth. But that goes back to what I was saying about Keaton Mitchell. So Keaton Mitchell now gives me the opportunity or the option or flexibility to move off of a Connor. Yeah. So that development, actually, I'm not going to trade Mitchell. I'll trade somebody else and just start Gus Edwards.
I like that. I like that move. I think that's a smart move for you. It's because we know Jordan Addison's going to be productive with or without Jefferson. Josh Dobbs, he supported Marquise Brown and Michael Wilson at times and McBride at times while he was in Arizona. So if that's the case for the rest of the season, I don't think that jeopardizes your chances of going to make the run that you want to make. So I like that trade. I think it's savvy and to stay even to get even younger.
You like it for both teams? You like it for the other team as well?
I do. For him, it makes sense. I do.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not?
No, because listen,
he still wants to win now.
Young. I know he wants to win now, but he's. It's all about youth, man. It's all about like if all of his youth is based on the running back position, Addison is clearly the star of his wide receiver core in terms of the future value. And so, for me, and it's not to criticize what he's done. I mean, he was the team. This was the Dan Snyder team Mike almost bought. I was like, this is the worst team in the league, and at the time he was. He hustled his butt off, turned it around, put together pieces like Mike Evans, Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, and others to go build a winning now roster, but he hadn't gotten younger, and now he's starting to get younger. So to trade the young away, he's done it too much. And the thing about Mike's window that I want to be super clear on, Mike, it's not about simply the players you went and acquired. It's also about who you have playing left on the schedule. I think it's like 3 teams are tanking and are planning to lose against you. So that's a huge – Mike knows what it's going to take to get to playoffs. Yeah. He doesn't have to set fire to his future to do so. If he can go get Addison for a Christian Kirk, absolutely, dude.
Well, I think Addison – the thing is Addison's value, though, like this is what I'm starting to see is I think that's kind of the best you're going to get for that owner for Addison. Because the reality is Mike, let's say you acquire Addison, right? To move off of Addison, you're not doing it for a single first. You want multiple firsts probably. How many teams can do that and how many teams will do that? And so if that's probably where that manager's at, because if you look at that guy's team, you know he doesn't have any picks. So he's trying to win now. That is his move. So I don't think it's a bad move for him to make that move, to bolster his team, to go and win, give himself the best chance to go and win this season. So I don't mind it.
Yeah. No, just last thought. In fairness, if he believes he can win a championship and he's chasing that, I can't fault it too much. In fairness, you got to stick with your direction year round.
I think I may do it because y'all know I'm an Addison guy, so I think I may do it. But fellas, this is so much fun. It's really fun when you're in it. I'm so glad to be back in it. I think I got a shot. I don't know about when. I'm not gonna get too far ahead of myself, but I'm relevant. I can make some noise down the stretch. And so all thanks to great relationships. So the moral of this story is, guys, relationships. Work on them. Just check in with guys. You never know where a conversation is going to lead to. Just a check in, like, yo, how you doing? What you thinking? All right, cool. Just work the phones, hustle. Next thing you know, you end up with a blockbuster. Fellas, this is a blockbuster episode. Love you both. And hold it down on Thursday. Y'all can pick whenever Davis comes back. Ask him what he was thinking. For sure.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. Hold it down later this week from Friday. I beg your pardon. All the days run together. Friday is the next episode of the Dynasty Exchange. This was fun, fellas.